What's happening, everybody? Tyrone Bowman live. Welcome to the conversation. Welcome to the program on today. All right, I'm going to get right down to it. The House Committee on Oversight and Reform released videos of former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's testimonies on Monday, following last week's hours-long depositions related to lawmakers' extensive Jeffrey Epstein investigation. What I'm going to do today, I'm going to show you the highlights of former Secretary of State Clinton's deposition, because the video itself is 4 hours in length and there's so much more information I have to cover today. And the video of Hillary and Bill Clinton, which totaled more than 9 hours in combined total length, were taken last Thursday and last Friday, respectively. So Committee Chairman James Comer, Republican from Kentucky, said they amounted to a, quote, an historical interview of the Clintons following widespread interest in their testimony over their references in the Epstein release, end quote. You know what's ironic before I get to the videos is that they're trying to insinuate and act like former President Clinton and former Secretary of State, former Senator Clinton are responsible for the crimes that Jeffrey Epstein committed. And yet it is ironic when Republicans were subpoenaed by the same committee, they defied the committee and never showed up, and they were never held in contempt of court. And then also ironic how they methodically attempt to link Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton to Jeffrey Epstein, but they conveniently make sure they shield and protect any key Republicans because for fear of retribution and retaliation against them. There is something sinister about this entire fiasco. But I'm going to hold back for a moment and I'm going to get this video started here. So once again, welcome to the program. Listen to former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton as she squares off against Representative Lauren Boebert, who was extremely nasty, and Clinton brought the fire right back to her, whether she wanted it or not. So the GOP, whatever they want to call themselves, MAGA GOP, I really don't care what they call themselves, they hastily hurried and released the videos because they think it is going to help them in the upcoming midterm elections, just like they think this war with Iran is going to help them in the upcoming midterm elections. Let's get down to it.
Let me be as clear as I can. I do not. As I stated in my sworn declaration on January 13th, I had no idea about their criminal activities. I do not recall ever encountering Mr. Epstein. I never flew on his plane or visited his island, homes, or offices. I have nothing to add to that. Like every decent person, I've been horrified by what we have learned about their crimes. It's unfathomable that Mr. Epstein initially got a slap on the wrist in
Let me say hi to my sister, Roberta Poindexter. Love you right back, sis. How you doing? Gotta acknowledge her real quick. All right, let me start this again.
Let me be as clear as I can. I do not. As I stated in my sworn declaration on January 13th, I had no idea about their criminal activities. I do not recall ever encountering Mr. Epstein. I never flew on his plane or visited his island, homes, or offices. I have nothing to add to that. Like every decent person, I've been horrified by what we have learned about their crimes. It's unfathomable that Mr. Epstein initially got a slap on the wrist in 2008, which allowed him to continue his predatory practices for another decade. Mr. Chairman, your investigation is supposed to be assessing the federal government's handling of the investigations and prosecutions of Epstein and his crimes. You subpoenaed 8 law enforcement officials, all of whom ran the Department of Justice or directed the FBI when Epstein's crimes were investigated and prosecuted.
Oh, get your hair all the way up, just like that. Grab a hair tie.
Nobody cares about these stupid commercials.
Of those 8, only 1 appeared before the committee. 5 of the 6 former attorneys general were allowed to submit brief statements stating they had no information to provide. You have held 0 public hearings, refused to allow the media to attend them, including today, despite espousing the need for transparency on dozens of occasions. You have made little effort to call the people who show up most prominently in the Epstein files. And when you did, not a single Republican member showed up for Les Wexner's deposition. This institutional failure is designed to protect one political party and one public official, rather than to seek truth and justice for the victims and survivors, as well as inform the public who want to get to the bottom of this matter. Instead, you have compelled me to testify, fully aware that I have no knowledge that would assist your investigation, in order to distract from President Trump's actions and to cover them up despite legitimate calls for answers. If this committee is serious about learning the truth about Epstein's trafficking crimes, it would not rely on press gaggles to get answers from our current president on his involvement. It would ask him directly under oath about the tens of thousands of times he shows up in the Epstein files. If the majority...
Let me interject this right here. I agree with her because these same so-called brave Republicans are scared to death of President Donald Trump. They are scared of him. That's the reason why I call this the inept Congress and the inept Senate. They have done nothing to advance an agenda that helps everyday people. They speak lies very well. And isn't it ironic that not one single Republican showed up when they were subpoenaed to come before this same committee? Yet they had the unmitigated gall to disrespect Hillary Clinton and disrespect the former president of the United States. And as you'll see in a few moments, she had had enough of their bullying, enough of their BS, enough of their lies. Because that's all it is. This whole thing was designed to do one thing, to humiliate the Clintons. That's what it was designed for. And they already knew before she came that they weren't going to receive any incriminating evidence against them. It wasn't going to happen. They knew it. The Clintons knew it. And they were pissed when she came with her armed lawyers because they thought she was going to come by herself. And that's what they were fooled at. Just because you are MAGA bigots and MAGA racists doesn't mean that people are afraid of y'all. You can keep your hate and your vitriol, but it doesn't move us because we know what time it is. We can see through it all. They're running scared. And when you're running scared, you deflect. That's what you do. You deflect and you deflect because you all think that you elected a God to office. That's your problem. You claim to be Christians, but you're not. Let's get back to Hillary Clinton.
It was serious. It would not waste time on fishing expeditions. There is too much to be done. What is being held back? Who is being protected? And why the cover-up? So my challenge to you, Mr. Chairman, and members of this committee is the same challenge I put to myself throughout my long service to this nation. How to be worthy of the trust of the American people that they have given to you. They expect statesmanship, not gamesmanship, leading, not grandstanding. And they expect you to use your power to get to the truth and to do more to help survivors of Epstein's crimes as well as the millions more who are victims of sex trafficking in this country and around the world.
Are you aware that both Republicans and Democrats voted to subpoena you and your husband?
I am here.
Okay. Are you aware both Republicans and Democrats voted to hold you in contempt when you didn't show up?
I am here.
Is that partisan when both parties vote to do something together? Is that partisan or nonpartisan?
I think it's standing up for the institution, but there are many other aspects of the committee's work that strikes me as avoiding the main issues about who should be sitting here, who has actual information that might be useful to your investigation.
As if it was not in your purview when you were Secretary of State, then why is it today in Secretary Rubio's purview?
Because what's happened is that the office that was actually following what was going on around the world has been decimated. 70% of the staff is gone. It's impossible to carry out the functions of that office if you don't have a critical number of people. So my question would be to Secretary Rubio, is there more that can be done?
I'm running out of time here. You were clothed with immense power as Secretary of State. You've stated on the record in your opening statement that child sex trafficking in general, human trafficking of all kinds is a priority. You were clothed with immense power. Your husband was clothed with immense power. And until you got this subpoena and until these files were out in the open, you did nothing to try to effectuate all of these things. You say that should have been done. Is that correct?
No, it's totally incorrect. I mean, all of your assumptions are ones that I reject.
When you saw...
Before we continue, let me respond to this comment. Quote, I'm not afraid to admit I'm a God-fearing Christian. I'm proud of it. Close quote. Well, let me put it to you this way. If your brand of Christianity supports racism, if it supports bigotry, if it supports hating black people, and if it supports hating anyone that is not Anglo-Saxon in the United States of America, then you could keep it. If your brand of Christianity continuously advocates a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white Messiah that was painted and depicted by who? Michelangelo, after he was commissioned to paint the Sistine Chapel, then you can keep it. Because I can recall very vividly growing up in America that there were two separate factions of so-called Christianity, one for white folk and one for black folk. And never the two ever came in contact with each other. So this is not about whether you're a Christian or not. It's about the political ideologies that your brand continuously espouses every single day and think that we are supposed to go along with it. What they've done to Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton is unconscionable. No one said that they were perfect. No one said that they didn't do things that weren't wrong. When Benghazi, remember the Benghazi incident that occurred? These people were all over Hillary Clinton, night and day, like she was the one responsible for the Benghazi incident. They held hearings of righteous indignation all the time. And she showed up every single day. And they still were not satisfied with her appearance before the committee. Republicans are not above the law. Republicans don't get a pass. Republicans want to think that they can say and do anything anytime they want to anybody, and no one's supposed to respond to it. The rule of law, quote unquote, should be toward everyone, not just to a certain select group of individuals. This is the reason why I have to respond the way I do. Because a certain people in America think that black people are continuously supposed to bow down before them. Well, that time is over, whether you like it or not.
Photos of your husband in a hot tub laying on a beach and getting massaged by other women, and you knew that Jeffrey Epstein was involved in some of these trips and these things. Did it concern you at all?
I'm here not to offer my opinions. I'm here to answer specific questions to the best of my ability.
When you saw your husband in these photos with a young woman being massaged, what went through your mind?
I am not going to speculate.
You didn't have any feelings about young women massaging your husband?
I am not going to offer opinions or speculation about anything that I have no context for and was not there.
After you learned that Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of sex crimes with kids, any of these photos of your husband with women being massaged on the beach, did it concern you?
I have no context for even answering that question. And I think, obviously the innuendo, all the rest of it.
I'm asking a black and white question. I'm not putting any leading statements into it or adjectives. Did you do anything to determine what was happening in those images or on those trips that once you saw these photos, once you realized Jeffrey Epstein was a convicted sex offender of children, did you do anything to determine what was happening on these trips with your husband?
I don't find any of your questions to be relevant to the investigation.
What is relevant if a former president was traveling around with young women?
Well, you'll have a
alone
chance.
with them?
You'll have a chance to talk to him tomorrow.
Excuse me, can I interrupt?
I have
There are
another.
photos that are being released of the secretary as she is testifying from inside this room. Can you please advise me as to whether or not that's permissible and consistent with the rules, particularly given that we have asked for a public hearing? If there are photos that are being released of the secretary as she is testifying, can you please explain how that
I'm done
can occur?
with this. If you guys are doing that, I am done. You can hold me in contempt from now until the cows come home. This is just typical behavior.
I
We will
did-
go off
I
the
did
record.
post one.
Oh, for heaven's
So I would like
sake.
to understand how that's permissible.
And she is absolutely right. While she was testifying before the committee, Boart decided that she would release live photos of Hillary Clinton and put them on the internet. Knowing darn well she was breaking committee rules, then she tried to justify it. This is the reason why there's no credibility with these people. None. And I'm going to tell you something. I have seen a lot of photos with Jeffrey Epstein with a whole lot of prominent people. And now they all try to disavow that they knew him. They all try to disavow that they took the photos with him. They all try to disavow that they were his friends or business partners and associates. Birds of a feather flock together. As I've said before, just because you take a photo op with somebody, that doesn't mean that you are incriminated by the actions that they have incriminated themselves with. That's the problem with partisan politics. And whatever Democrats went along with this foolery, this idiotic so-called committee, they too must be called on the carpet. What's wrong with you spineless, weak, gutless Democrats that you will go along with any and everything instead of standing up and putting up a fight for what is right? You've got Hakeem Jeffries, Cory Booker, Schumer. They appear to be the only three. You have Congressman Jasmine Crockett, who's running for the Senate. These four appear to be the only four individuals willing to fight and take the fight straight to the Republicans. This is ridiculous. And she should have been held in contempt and reprimanded. Why is she releasing photos? For what purpose? Just like when the caricature depicting former President Barack Obama and Michelle Obama as apes and gorillas. The spin was, oh, that was some lowly staffer that loaded up on social media, which was an outright lie. You're not going to denigrate the Obamas and think black folk are not going to have something to say about it. You out of your damn minds. Heck out of here. Yeah, that's right, I said it.
Of the secretary as she is testifying from inside this room. Can you please advise me as to whether or not that's permissible and consistent with the rules, particularly given that we have asked for a public hearing? If there are photos that are being released of the secretary as she is testifying, can you please explain how
I'm
that can
done
occur?
with this. If you guys are doing that, I am done. You can hold me in contempt from now until the cows come home. This is just typical behavior.
We will go off the record.
Post one.
Oh, for heaven's
So I would
sake.
like to understand how that's permissible.
Before the hearing was,
It doesn't matter. We all are abiding by the same rules.
I will take that down.
Yeah,
So
well,
I would like to take a break at this moment.
yeah,
I would like to have
I'm
a
done
conversation.
for now.
Go off the record. Go off the record.
We've all accepted that everything we do online is tracked. Every search, every click, every...
She is not a child to be berated, to be lambasted. And then they want to try to justify what they did. Let me play that again. And their response is, I'm taking it down right now. What did you even post it for? What was the purpose? This is why Republicans are going to lose during the midterm elections. They're going to lose, and they're going to lose big. Because you all, with your arrogance, your smugness, your narcissistic attitudes, your egotistical mindsets, and you think people are just going to blindly go through life and forget about all the wrong, rotten stuff you all have said and done. We're not forgetting anything. Our memories are long. That's why everything is going on the way it is right now. It's called deflect, deflect, deflect. I told you last week that Watergate was the downfall of Richard Nixon.
The secretary, as she is testifying from inside this room, can you please advise me as to whether or not that's permissible and consistent with the rules, particularly given that we have asked for a public hearing? If there are photos that are being released of the secretary as she is testifying, can you please explain how
I'm
that can
done
occur?
with this. If you guys are doing that, I am done. You can hold me in contempt from now until the cows come home. This is just typical behavior.
We will go off the record.
Oh, for heaven's
So I would like
sake.
to understand how that's permissible.
Before the hearing was,
It doesn't
Excuse
matter.
me.
We all are abiding by the same rules.
I will take that down.
Yeah,
So I
well,
would like to take a break at this moment.
yeah,
I would like to have
I'm
a
done
conversation.
for now.
Go off the record. Go off the record.
More transparent than a public hearing, cameras on. Secretary Clinton, why is it important for you to testify before this committee in a public setting?
Well, first of all, I believe in public testimony. I believe that the public has a right to know what its elected members of Congress are investigating and legislating. Having served for 8 years, I think it is useful as a member to do a hearing in public because you're going to learn things by the coverage of it, by the response that you get from people. You know, this hearing, if it were in public, maybe somebody, your question about intelligence, maybe somebody watching it would have said, oh my gosh, I just remembered having a conversation with Foreign Minister X or Prime Minister Y, and that person mentioned Jeffrey Epstein. Most people are not going to look at the video, they're not going to read the transcript, but they will follow a live public hearing. So I think it actually enhances the work that those of us who've been privileged to serve are doing and can do. So to me, it is just an absolute prerequisite for doing the kind of legislative and investigative work as effectively as possible by doing it in public.
And did you know that you would be photographed today?
No.
And is that at all part of what you had understood about the terms of the agreement for today's deposition?
Well, I will confess that I had some concerns about whether the majority on the committee would treat me fairly and would, fairly convey what I say and what I did and how I looked and how I responded. So yes, I did have a concern. And when we learned about the photos being taken not by a staff member, but by a member, it was shocking and very disappointing. So if it were in public, we wouldn't have that debate. Everybody could see the same thing that the congresswoman saw. I'm sitting here, sometimes I'm smiling, sometimes I'm frowning, sometimes I look good, sometimes I don't. That's all in public. Everybody can have the same view rather than, an angled photo and all the rest of it. So it was disappointing, and I regret that it happened and it violated your rules, but that's not the real concern I have. The real concern is get busy. Focus on the people that have something to tell you, that can tell you about intelligence, money, and crimes, and get them before you, and whenever possible, do it in public. Having observed President Trump up close and personal for a number of years now, since I ran against him, he has a tell. He has a behavioral tell. Whenever he is worried about being found out himself, he accuses somebody else of doing what he actually has done. And it's just a pattern with him. So it's no surprise to me that all of a sudden, what he promised in his campaign to reveal, everything about the files, and then when his people began looking in the files and realized how potentially incriminating they were of him, all of a sudden, that was no longer the focus. It was blaming Democrats, talking about a hoax, saying move on, there's nothing to see here. That is a typical pattern of President Trump's behavior, which speaks louder than all the words that he speaks and all of the Truth Social posts that he makes. He clearly knows what he did. He knows what others did, because remember, one of the emails that has come out recently is he called the police chief of Palm Beach at the time Epstein was arrested, according to reporting, to say, I'm so glad you got him. I'm so glad you're stopping him. Well, how would he know that?
And finally, do you think that Donald Trump should be deposed by this committee?
Absolutely. You know, I was a lawyer.
Let's get something straight here. They're never going to depose President Trump. That's number one. And number two, the Clintons and Donald Trump know each other very well. They didn't just meet each other last week. Trump was a lifelong Democrat for a long time. And they all traveled in the same circles together. So they all know each other very well. And last, why is there special preferential treatment given to the Republicans, and that same preferential treatment is not given to Democrats? Because it's a game. That's why. It's a real game. And you all in the comment section, you must think you're talking to an idiot. I see your asinine comments coming across. First of all, Hillary's a lawyer, and Hillary used to be a Republican, and she knows them very well. She's a brilliant lawyer, a brilliant scholar, and you all don't give the woman credit for nothing. Just because her husband, Bill, who's also a lawyer, was president of the United States of America twice, same way this one was elected twice. You don't give her credit, you don't give them credit for nothing. You think they're imbecilic, like they're inarticulate and they're unintelligent. Their contributions to this country mean nothing. Why? Because Republicans are in power at the moment? They don't have absolute power. They may think so within their own minds that they have absolute power, but they don't. And they won't be in power much longer. See, that's what you all don't understand. And this is the big fear of the Republican Party, or the MAGA Party, as I'm going to call them from now on, because there is no longer a Republican Party. It's a MAGA Party. If they have the fear of losing control of the Senate, and they have fear of losing control of Congress, because they know there are going to be huge congressional hearings that's going to take place, and people are going to be subpoenaed and come before those hearings and have to answer for everything that's going on in this country. Like it or not, that's the way it is. I'm going to get back to Hillary, and then I'm going to move on.
Speaks louder than all the words that he speaks and all of the Truth Social posts that he makes. He clearly knows what he did. He knows what others did, because remember, one of the emails that has come out recently is he called the police chief of Palm Beach at the time Epstein was arrested, according to reporting, to say, I'm so glad you got him. I'm so glad you're stopping him. Well, how would he know that?
And finally, do you think that Donald Trump should be deposed by this committee?
Absolutely. You know, I was a lawyer, and as a lawyer, you would look for pattern and practice. If you were deposing a witness in a case that you were trying, if you were in court, what did you know about this person? What you knew could influence how you questioned that person, how you tried the case. Donald Trump has been held civilly liable for sexual assault by a jury of his peers. 9 members of a jury found him liable in the sexual assault of E. Jean Carroll. That is behavior. That fits a pattern if one were looking for a pattern. He has also been convicted on 34 felony counts for attempting to hide his relationship.
Let me speak directly to Mr. First, whatever. You know, I've never blackballed anyone from this channel, but I will make an exception in your case. You, sir, I promise you, will no longer have access to this channel. And that's the bottom line. I will make sure that you never come on here again. So you can take your racist self and go back over to MAGA country. As a matter of fact, go over to the Fox network, the one that you all love, where they spew and spin lies 24 hours a day. I call them the racist and bigoted network. So you go back over there with your kind of people, and then you stay over there with them.
With a escort, and then to commit business fraud to prevent it from becoming public in the 2016 campaign, which was ultimately election interference. So if I were running the committee or I were involved in this investigation, I would be looking for people who maybe had some prior conduct that might be relevant to either money or crimes. And yes, I think that it would be in keeping with the scope of the investigation of this committee to set up a deposition with President Trump. I know he's been deposed many, many, many times. He's taken the Fifth Amendment many, many hundreds of times. So I'm not saying you're going to get a lot of information. But given what's in the files and given past and prior conduct, he would be on my witness list.
By this standard of behavior, multiple credible accusers, including Juanita Broderick, who alleged rape against your husband was disbarred in Arkansas, lost his law license before the Supreme Court, flew on Epstein's plane dozens of times, visited Epstein's island.
That is not true. That is absolutely untrue.
Well, there's documentation in the DOJ files. I'm not sure you're aware, your attorneys have told you, but Jeffrey Epstein told one of the victims to lie to investigators, to lie that Bill Clinton was ever on Epstein Island. I can provide that document to you.
We would like that document, please.
Okay.
Yeah, counsel, because actually the files
Man, I don't
say
give a
just
damn.
the
Do
opposite.
whatever you want.
Epstein
I
himself
don't care
denied it.
less.
These are FBI notes from an interview with a victim, and I can get you the victim number and the case number and the files. These are notes from a 302
If
interview.
you like those, are you going to provide those now?
I don't, that's not my line of questioning. She brought it up, but I have a
I'm
document.
sorry,
I
you
can
mean
get to
you're
you.
making a representation
Yeah.
as to the facts.
I didn't enter anything as an exhibit.
But it's factually inaccurate.
No, I can give it to you later. I can go find the document, make copies of it, and give it to you this afternoon.
She's lying.
Thank you so much.
Okay. By your standard of pattern of behavior, according to documents released by the Department of Justice, your husband appears in photos in swimming pools, hot tubs, aboard Jeffrey Epstein's private plane with unidentified young women. We came here today and you told this committee that a pattern of behavior demands accountability, correct?
I said that I believe the committee should call anyone who had a substantial pattern and practice of contact with Jeffrey Epstein and his crimes before they came to light.
Does that include your husband?
And after they came to light. You're going to have a chance to question him tomorrow.
So I'll ask you again, by the standard you just set in your own words just now, does this standard apply equally to your husband or only President Trump?
I have said that my husband has been subpoenaed. He will appear. He will answer your questions to the best of his ability. But there is no evidence whatsoever of any connection with Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. And I think that that will be obviously apparent in the questioning.
What makes you so sure of that then? I mean, he's photographed with.
Objection
No,
is to speculate on something that's not.
Yeah,
evidence.
it is so speculative. I mean, swimming in a pool, sitting in a hot tub, there are millions of people who do that without any improper behavior or certainly committing any crimes. So I
Do you think most of the men are like your husband that did anything wrong? Why were they being surrounded by young women, giving them massages on Jeffrey's private estate or private plane? Are they all innocent then?
You know,
because-
you are making assumptions in your questions that have not been proven and I don't believe are provable.
And that's a good point because there are hundreds of pictures with Trump taking pictures with Jeffrey Epstein. Does that mean he did anything wrong? So because somebody takes a picture with someone, that means that they are culpable of wrongdoing? That makes no kind of sense. It's just a freaking photo. And to deny that a person took a picture with somebody and somebody tried to frame them, that's a whole different thing. You know, if you took a picture with someone, you took a picture with someone. It doesn't mean you did anything wrong. It doesn't mean that you participated in Epstein's crimes. But to deny that you even knew the person, that's where the wrongdoing comes in at. Hillary already made it abundantly clear. She didn't know Epstein. She didn't take any pictures with Epstein. But they want to make it a referendum on Bill Clinton because they don't want to talk about anybody else but the Clintons. And isn't it ironic? Jeffrey Epstein was arrested, and 1 month later, they claimed he committed suicide in the cell. Where is the footage? You can't find it. Where were the guards who were supposed to be protecting him around the clock when you have a high profile like that inside of a county prison? Oh, all of a sudden they can't find them. Well, they were asleep. Well, how do you know they were asleep if there is no footage to substantiate that claim of them being asleep? Something stinks about this whole thing, and that's why it won't go away. That's the reason why it keeps coming up over and over and over again. And it will continue to. Nixon repeatedly lied about Watergate until they got the smoking guns, because that dummy recorded everything. Because his arrogance and his pride and his avarice made him think that he was above the law.
Thank you for a fun night. Your littlest girl was a little naughty.
How does that make you feel?
Makes me sick.
If you can also read the EFTA 0087841. This is also another email. Can you just please provide the context? It's an email to Jeffrey Epstein. If you could just read the context of what it is.
Of course, the Ohio Jesus, I'm coming trick.
And just the main body of the context of the email.
Said that she felt God's presence next to her when she was in bed. She knows that Jesus watches over her and he helped save her life. Whoops.
How does that make you feel?
It's bizarre. I don't know what it means.
The reason I asked you to read both of these is because these emails were both sent by co-conspirators that were then given the plea deals and now have been given victim status. Both of these women were also named in an FBI document, and they're on a number of other emails. Do you believe that the Department of Justice should reevaluate the plea deals for some of these women, given that, as you can see, they have clearly done some things probably that they shouldn't have?
I don't know the status of whether that would be legally possible, so I have no opinion.
I think outside of the statute of limitations, they might be able to reinvestigate under the civil rights violations. Would you be in favor of that, or looking into any of the co-conspirators that were given plea deals down to victim status if there's credible evidence that they were trafficking young girls?
You know, those in power knew Jeffrey Epstein was a sex trafficker. P. Diddy, Sean Diddy Combs right now, is sitting in prison because they could not convict him on the sex trafficking charges. They could only convict him on something minor. Those in the music industry, those who worked for him, they all very well knew everything that P. Diddy or Diddy Love or whatever you want to call himself, they all knew what he was doing. But they all looked the other way because everybody was making a ton of money and nothing was supposed to interfere in business. Someone asked a question, what about the 6 women that Bill Clinton settled with? What does that have to do with the Jeffrey Epstein files? Nothing. If he settled with them, he settled with them. That was long before Epstein Gate or Epstein scenario. That has nothing to do with this. Nothing. So trying to detract from this conversation and continuously talking about what he did when he was down in Arkansas or who he settled with, the Monica Lewinsky. I've talked about this many times. What does it have to do with Jeffrey Epstein? Has nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. What about Bill Gates and all these other billionaires who took pictures with Jeffrey Epstein and went to his island, went to his mansions? I don't see any of them being brought before the committee. What about the founder of Bezos? They're not dragging him before this committee. Go and get every billionaire that was ever associated with him and took photos with him and dragged them before the committee as well. Over in the United Kingdom, the UK, the dude who used to be a prince, Andrew Mountbatten, is no longer prince because all the stuff that he did and kept lying about it. And God rest the soul of the woman, she couldn't take it anymore and she committed suicide, but it was proven that she told the truth all the time. So there's a lot going on here. And trying to cover it up, trying to pretend that it doesn't exist, trying to negate the fact that Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton were not responsible for Epstein's actions. You got Maxwell in prison right now. She's ready to sing like a canary if she doesn't get what she wants. He took her out of the maximum security prison and put her in a minimum low risk prison. And Ghislaine Maxwell wants total and full clemency. She wants her record cleared. She was a co-conspirator and a sex trafficker. So let's deal with the facts here. The Clintons didn't create this scandal or this saga. And it's not going to go away. The reason why it's not going to go away because people keep lying about it. And no matter what people try to say, no matter what they try to do, people can try to deflect all they want. It's not going anywhere. Now, if you want to talk about Bill Clinton's past, we can talk about that in a separate video. But it has nothing to do with what's taking place with Jeffrey Epstein. Nothing.
I think it should be pursued.
All right, Secretary Clinton, how do you feel about your husband being named in the Epstein files?
Well, I think it's, something that is unfortunate. And I'm sure that he will tell you that he wished he had not flown on Epstein's plane. So that's, it's unfortunate in my opinion.
Is how do we determine whether or not Epstein was a spy, whether or not Epstein was trading secrets? Because he had people on the inside, especially in the Obama administration. We're not saying you, but Obama's former counsel that then went to Goldman Sachs. Where do we go in this investigation to try to determine whether or not he was an asset?
Mr. Chairman.
Now they want to drag Obama into this mess. What does President Obama have to do with Jeffrey Epstein? Absolutely nothing. Nothing whatsoever. So they want to bring him up, try to make it appear that he was on the island, that he's a pedophile, that he's a sex trafficker. and the blatant disrespect that Obama received during his 8 years as a president of this country is disgusting. All because of a certain group of people who can't accept the fact that they lost the war hundreds of years later. They can't accept the fact that slavery is over. And you want to go back to that time, but we're not going back to that time. That time is over. It's finished. Let's conclude with Hillary.
Ron, I really appreciate that question. And I can't say that about many of the questions, but I really do appreciate that question. And I think it's an absolutely essential question for you to try to examine and find answers for. And I think you said that you had either document requests or maybe even a subpoena to the CIA. I would also include the DNI. I would include, any counterintelligence or appropriate unit within the Justice Department. I think you have to cast a wide net. And now that, as you describe, the government in the UK is investigating both Andrew Mountbatten and Peter Mendelsohn, maybe they would cooperate with you in their investigation. And maybe, you could reach out to the intelligence agencies of other countries that you're looking at. Israel has been mentioned. Perhaps that is one to be. I don't think Iran is going to cooperate, but I think, or Russia, but I think you could, certainly go to the UK and go to Israel and see if they would be at all helpful to you.
In your experience as Secretary of State, and I know you were First Lady, but you were more active, in my opinion, than most First Ladies in the President Clinton's administration. Does he exhibit characteristics? Is there a pattern that would lead you and your expertise to believe that he was an asset?
Well, there certainly is in the files, and I do commend you for getting as much released as you can. I hope you can get it all released. Hints of relationships with powerful foreign leaders, pictures, emails, meetings. He was clearly somebody who traded off of information.
Exactly.
He liked to collect it and then he liked to use it. I don't know any more details than that. So he is certainly, I said earlier, the intelligence connections, the money connections, the crimes, those seem to me to be the three major elements of your investigation.
Those are the hot moments. We'll stop here. Ladies and gentlemen, those are the hot moments from the former Secretary of State, former Senator, United States Senator Hillary Clinton's Epstein deposition. It's nothing more than a circus. That's what it was. It's a waste of taxpayers' money, a waste of time. And nothing incriminating came out of it, and they can't incriminate her because she wasn't involved in anything. So after I have a chance to review former President Clinton's testimony, I'll bring the highlights of his testimony as well. For now, I'm out of here. Never surrender. Never quit.